Zucker, Chancellor of the Philadelphia Bar Association, and I welcome you to the first and only Mayoral Forum, organized by and directed to our broad and diverse membership. We have over 100 people who are expected to be crowding this room, already a nice crowd, I see, and many, many more watching remotely. The Philadelphia Bar Association has always been civically engaged and invested in Philadelphia's future. Many of our members are civic and government leaders themselves, in addition to being voters, judges, labor leaders, labor lawyers, business advisors, prosecutors, defenders, public interest and civil rights advocates, mediators, arbitrators, city employees, and innovators, reformers, and visionaries in the quest for the fair treatment of all Philadelphians. Our firms, judges, lawyers, and employees are consumers of city services and contributors to the city's health, growth, and development. Our goals, like yours, are to advance Philadelphia's reputation as a model for access to justice, as a city friendly to residents and businesses alike, and as a safe, attractive, and livable city where social justice, community cohesion, and professional excellence are not mere platitudes, but goals to which we can all build together. Much of our work this year has been devoted to ensuring, through our Commission on Judicial Selection and Retention, that voters are well informed about the candidates running for judicial office and ensuring that we have free and fair elections. Today, however, we focus on the more narrow and most high profile of races, the campaign to decide who will lead our city as mayor. To advance that goal, it's my privilege to introduce Marcel Pratt, managing partner of the Ballard Spahr Law Firm's Philadelphia office, former city solicitor and superlative attorney. Marcel.
I don't know about that last part, but thank you for saying that. So good evening, everyone. And Mark, thank you for this opportunity to present tonight's forum. And welcome to our members attending tonight, the 100 plus we have here in the room, and also the 200 plus folks that we have appearing virtually. Our Bar Association has some of the most civically engaged folks in Philadelphia, and it shows through your work and the many things that you do in the legal community just how much you care about our city. So thank you for allowing me to ask your questions tonight, as I know this election is very important to you. Tonight we have the following candidates with us. We have Jeff Brown, James DeLeon, Alan Dom, Helen Gim, and Rebecca Reinhart. We are grateful for every minute of their time as they are coming down the home stretch and are juggling several commitments this evening. And understandably, some have to leave early. Ms. Gim and Ms. Reinhart have to leave around 7 o'clock. I should also announce that Sherelle Parker tried to join us, but unfortunately she could not. She did send her regards with a statement, quote, "I wish I could be with you tonight. Unfortunately, my schedule has me crisscrossing the city around the clock, and I am at 3 other events in different parts of the city this evening. I wish I could be there with you, if for no other reason than to acknowledge the Bar Association's incredible work in the city of Philadelphia and all the friends and supporters that are members of the bar and here tonight." And Naman Brown, just a few minutes ago, said that he's not able to make it. But turning to the candidates who are here, I want to welcome you all, and I hope you're ready for this deposition tonight. I'm sorry, Mayoral Forum. A few rules of the road, kind of like a deposition, though. Answer the question that is asked. Many of us in this room ask questions for a living. So if you are evasive, I will not call you out, but you should know that folks are paying attention. I will call on each of you to answer the question, and the order of response has been randomized. Also, please strictly adhere to the time limits, because we have a lot of ground to cover tonight, and this may require me to cut you off, so I apologize in advance. And also, using another candidate's name will allow them to respond to what you've said. So first question, before we jump into your policy positions, we want to learn something personally important about each of you. So our life experiences define who we are, and we bring those experiences to every job, including a job like being mayor of Philadelphia. So please tell us about a non-political experience that has had a profound impact on who you are today. And you have 1 minute to answer that, and we're going to start with James DeLeon.
Well, it's good to be here. I've had a lot of non-political experiences that shaped me, but I'm going to give you an experience based on the experiences that a lot of people in this city are going through right now, and that's an experience with gun violence. So one time in Washington, I was driving down the street and I saw two men running up the street, and one of them had a gun. And he kept on going, and as I drove up the street a little bit further, I saw a police officer. So his hat flew off. So I stopped the car, turned around, picked up his hat, and I drove up beside him and I asked, excuse me, officer, you dropped your hat. He said, thank you. He said, did you see two guys coming this way? I said, what do you mean, the guy with the gun? He said, yeah. I said, sure, jump in the car, I'll give you a lift. So I drove him up to an alley. He and a cop, we got out the car and we walked up the alley, and we didn't see anybody. So the cop kept on, he said, I'm going to walk around the alley. So as I walked back, the two young men came over a chain link fence, and we had words, hey, how you doing? Didn't I see you just with the cop? No, I wasn't with the cop. Yeah, you were. I just saw you with the cop. I swear I wasn't with the cop. The cop comes around the corner. They say, oh, hell, it's the cop. So they start running. So the cop shoots. He says, hold on, I'll shoot. He shoots. They keep running, and they start shooting back. So the cop says, oh, S, they shooting. So we both dove to the side of the wall. So the cop he put his gun in his left hand, and he's going around the corner. He's shooting back at him. They're shooting back at him. So he looks over at me. He says, see if you can make it back to the street and let them know I'm up here. So I said, yeah. So I was crawling on the ground, going back to the street. Bullets are going over my head. I get back to the street. There's a car there with a white shirt in it. He says, hey, have you seen one of my officers here? I said, yeah, he's right up the alley in the shootout, going up there. He says, oh, so then they get on the phone. They call a lot
Mr.
of...
DeLeon,
Okay.
your time is up.
So you got the gist of it.
We got the gist of it. Next, Alan Dom.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here tonight. Two quick examples. One, I guess, it's personal. I was just turned 40. My brother turned 43. I had one sibling, and he died of colon cancer. And I saw what that did to my parents, which is awful when you have to bury a child. It's awful. And then recently, maybe a few months ago, I got an email, or on LinkedIn, a message on LinkedIn, from Marge LaRue, who says to me, I like your public safety plan, and I'd like to meet with you. Thank you. My grandson was Nicholas Elizalde, the 14-year-old young man who was killed coming off the football field in Roxborough. I immediately emailed her back and said, I'm happy to meet. I met with her and Nicholas's mother. This was Nicholas's mother's only child, Meredith. She had one son, 14, who was taken from her. And I will tell you that meeting is gut-wrenching. I made a commitment to meet with every victim's family, but no one knows the grief that people go through. We have to get this violence under control. That's my two experiences.
Thank you, Alan. Next, Rebecca Reinhardt.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. As city controller, I was doing a lot of work around gun violence and started working with some community activists in North and West Philly that were active in the fight against gun violence. Daryl Schuler, Salam Hussein, and a few others. And I went with them to SCI Phoenix. And that started a series of visits that I've made since 2019, meeting with members of a group called Real Street Talk. Some of you might know it, but it's a group of lifers, mostly lifers in SCI Phoenix, that want to help the young men on the street today in Philadelphia make different choices. And they want to be part of the solution. I recently went up there a few weeks ago again, hearing their life stories of the decisions, of the pain that they now realize they caused, and wanting to be part of the solution gives me tremendous hope for our city and the path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Helen Gim.
I grew up in an immigrant family, and one of the lessons we learned early on, my mom came from a very big family in Korea, but mostly came here by herself. And then my father was separated at a very early age by the Korean War and grew up very orphaned, and then came to the U.S. at a much later age, got his first job at age 39. And one of the things they told me was that home is what you make and family is who you find. And I've worked really hard to deliver a place where we treat people like home and other people are like family. I learned early on that public institutions do a lot for that. When you don't have individual things that my parents couldn't afford, like books in English, I would have a public library that provided it. When I didn't have a diverse community, I was able to have that at a recreation center in my park. And I went to a great public school, and it's a reminder that this idea of the Commonwealth is really what has driven me all my life. And it's the part that I'm trying to restore back to the city, to run it like it's home and we're all family and nobody gets left behind.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
Good evening. As some of you may know, for years we've been hiring formerly incarcerated folks, helping them turn their lives around. And a few of them in particular really crystallize what we're doing. We have literally hired thousands, and we've been keeping track of our successes and failures. And we've run about a 98% success rate of our trainees not going back to the criminal justice system. That's a number. But I know the men and women. And once they have a good job, it's just incredible how the family unit develops, and ultimately we've seen them buy homes and be citizens that teach Little League and are just like us. And I think it's, to a big extent, the answer to our problems. Get people to make a living, and things fall into line.
Thank you. So next question, we want to get to know you a little bit better. And so the next question is there a skill or qualification that you have for mayor that no one else on this stage has? And so start your answer with the phrase, no other candidate, and then finish it. And so the first candidate to answer this question, Rebecca Reinhardt.
No other candidate has the city executive level experience that I'm bringing as a mayoral candidate. For the last 5 years, I've run the city controller's office, unionized workforce. I've run it, and I've run it well and gotten things done. The last mayor that became the mayor after having city executive level experience was Mayor Rendell. He ran the district attorney's office before becoming mayor. So not only have I worked for 2 mayors and been the budget director, known the budget inside and out, I know how to manage a city workforce and can start on day one to fix the issues facing our city, to make it safer, cleaner, and to fix our schools. We can do this. I have the experience, and I'm uniquely qualified to hit the ground running from day one. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Thank you, Marcel. No other candidate has my experience in life, so I have a different viewpoint. I've spent over 40 years in the private sector and almost 2 terms on council. I'm the only candidate, is that the right wording? I'm the only candidate who's served in government and gotten things accomplished, and in the private sector also. And my goal is to bring people together to solve our biggest issues. Bring Philadelphians together, bring people in government and outside of government. We have some really smart people outside of government. We need them to help us solve these issues. And I've done that when I was on council. I had a public safety cabinet where I brought all law enforcement together to work on that. I'll continue to do that. I did that for outdoor dining. I had convened a forum of, or Zoom, I should say at that point, in April of 20 for 125 restaurants and hotels to bring them together to say, what do you need to survive? And they told me outdoor dining, and we passed that legislation. We have to bring people together. Right now, our leadership is siloed. We need to bring people together to solve these issues.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
No other candidate in this race has the experience on reducing homicides in the city of Philadelphia as I have. For 34 years, I was a judge here in this city. There was a period of time in this city when homicides were over 400 a year. At that time, I was appointed the supervising judge of municipal court. In that position, I led the initiatives of our court that reduced homicides in this city from that 400 figure down to 250 people per year for 7 straight years. Now, any life is a life that's precious and we should not lose. But for that period of time that I was supervising judge, I did save over 1,000 lives in Philadelphia. And I've been writing about how to save lives, how to reduce gun violence, how to reduce recidivism. So I am an expert in that field as well as an incident specialist.
Thank you. Helen Gim.
No other candidate has led the kind of transformative change that I've worked for inside and outside of office, and I never needed a title to make that happen. I help lead and support communities who are trying to stop themselves from being displaced, whether it was Chinatown against a stadium or a casino, or whether it was about a South Philadelphia high school that was dealing with unmitigated amounts of violence. We were able to work with communities and turn it around. Once I got onto city council, I wanted to prove that a real movement person could actually make transformative change here in the city of Philadelphia. Proud to work with the Bar Association to establish Civil Gideon in a meaningful way in which we showed the country that eviction diversion could be a transformative effort that would keep 50,000 people housed and deliver rent assistance that could slash evictions in our city by more than 2/3. Delivered labor rights that expanded opportunities for more than 130,000 individuals. Delivered safe drinking water to every single public school and ended school, invested in our public school system. This is about transformative change, and you want a mayor who can actually lead that into the future, not just write about it, not just talk about it, but actually deliver it.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
No other candidate on this stage has managed a large unionized workforce to address transformational change in our neighborhoods. I hired 60,000 people from the neighborhoods, gave them their first job, helped many people out of poverty. I did the same thing with formerly incarcerated folks that led me to lead Philadelphia Youth Network and help 200,000 young people in the neighborhoods get their first internship, and the chairman of the State Workforce Board to help hundreds of thousands of people have a pathway out of poverty. And what's interesting is our biggest problem is structural poverty. You fix the structural poverty problem, so many other problems fall into line. That makes me the most qualified candidate.
Thank you. So I know that you've received a lot of questions about stop and frisk during your campaigns, and I want to ask a very specific question about it. In 2010, the ACLU filed a class action civil rights lawsuit alleging that the Philadelphia Police Department subjected city residents, particularly black Philadelphians, to unlawful investigative detention and searches. That case, captioned Bailey versus the City of Philadelphia, resulted in a settlement and a fairly comprehensive consent decree, which has led to federal judicial oversight over the police department's policies and practices for the past 12 years, including over matters like police discipline and restrictions on quality of life stops. It is likely that the next mayor will inherit the consent decree and be bound and arguably limited by its terms. So the question is, if you are elected mayor, will you seek to have the 12-year-old Bailey consent decree lifted so that you can exercise greater discretion over your police force? Or do you support judicial supervision of the police department? Please explain your answer in 1 minute or less, and we're going to start with Jeff Brown.
Yeah, I agree with the consent decree. I wouldn't challenge it. I would live with it. I think there's plenty of room to exercise police authority and for people to have their civil rights. We were way out of hand, just stopping an incredible number of people for no reason in areas of color, and it did not yield good results. There wasn't a good reason to do it.
James DeLeon.
Well, obviously, I'm for the Bailey consent decree. During my time on the bench, through a lot of motions to suppress, a lot of those cases got kicked out because of those illegal stops and frisk. As a mayor, the main thing I have to do is train my police force on constitutional means of stopping citizens. And you can't just stop a citizen because you have a hunch. You have to have reasonable suspicion that a crime is about to be committed. And then the funny thing is, because there's two parts to the stop and frisk. The first is the stop, which is the reasonable suspicion, as you know. And the second part is if the person you feel is armed and dangerous, at that time is the only time that you can go through the frisk. So with that two-pronged process, we have to train our officers that they know specifically the constitutional intent of why that Terry stop came into view and why they have to rely on the Constitution and the training that we're going to give them.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Thank you, Marcel. Look, my public safety plan, which is on my website, votedom.com, is very comprehensive. It's a 10-point plan. And I've spoken to past police commissioners to help me with it because I realize that there are smarter people outside than myself on this area, and I would engage them. And what I've been told is that constitutional Terry stops, as James DeLeon outlined, reasonable suspicion, is what we should be doing in the city. Because, look, we need to make sure that we cut down on this crime. It's more than doubled in the last 10 years, the violence in the city. And each and every one of you has the right not to be shot. We should be able to, when we train our police officers the correct way, which we didn't do in the past, train the police officers to do constitutional Terry stops. And I think that could be a successful program.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Yeah, so I've been quite clear in my public safety plan and in speaking about this that we can't go backwards to unconstitutional and practices that have been found to be racist and actually not effective, such as the old way of the level of stopping, right? The old practice that's called stop and frisk. So what we need to do is move forward in a way where there's safety and justice. Many of the other candidates have spoke about the Terry stop. Police have the ability to stop right now, and they have the ability to move forward and do that going forward in a way that is constitutional and for cause, which I don't think anyone is against. Police stops for cause. We do need to make sure that there's changes in policing. And as controller, I did an audit of the police department that found serious issues that need to be fixed with police training and police accountability, and making sure that there's police on patrol out on the streets. So we can do this, we can make our city safer, but it's not going backwards.
Helen Gem.
Yes, I don't think there's any question that I guess I'll be the only candidate that says that not only will I enforce the Bailey consent decree, but I believe in judicial supervision, in large part because we've seen evidence that individuals were seeking to violate that, whether through the driving stops that were happening. And one of the reasons why we need to continue to grow and expand and hold ourselves accountable. Bailey was not just about, we paid out millions of dollars. We violated people's civil rights. It was enormously unsuccessful. So this is not even just about, and because of that, I believe that the callbacks to it, even invoking the term stop and frisk, is irresponsible in this moment. In large part because if we are serious about retraining, if we are serious about having an accountable police force, we shouldn't be invoking the language of the past and tempting and alluding to things that were poor practices. I would literally rather give money away and throw it out into the air than to pay out a settlement for an individual who had been abused by our own institutions. But I believe that we need judicial enforcement and continued retraining of our officers so that we can deliver the safe constitutional rights that our citizens deserve and a safer city.
Thank you. Next question. In 2018, the district attorney issued a policy that required retail theft cases to be charged as summary offenses unless the value of the items exceeded $500 or if the defendant has had a very long history of theft and retail theft convictions. The rationale of the policy was to reduce pretrial incarceration rates for low-level offenses. Do you agree with that policy? And please start your answer with yes or no, and then explain your answer in less than a minute. Alan Dom.
Thank you. I would say no, and I'll tell you why. Our neighborhood stores are getting crushed with retail theft. Crushed. They're stealing from them. They can't afford it. Our center city stores are getting crushed. Everywhere is getting crushed with retail theft. And I'll just share a few facts. In 2022, 70% of all the retail theft in the core of the city was committed by less than 30 people. You have to hold them accountable. On March 17th in Macy's, we arrested someone for the 67th time shoplifting. In 2022, just to give you an idea, Macy's reported a $2.8 million loss from retail theft. $2.8 million. Do you think they're going to stay here? Now just think of the neighborhoods that can't afford it either. This is across the city. We have to prosecute retail theft. It's just not acceptable.
Thank you. Helen Gem.
So I would say that I have an issue with the broadness of it. I think that there are incidences where there's repeated issues that we could talk about. And my biggest issue is that I think it sends the wrong message out publicly. I do believe that we should divert. I believe that there should be accountability. I believe that there needs to be clarity about this position. And I think we need a stronger hand on how we're going to talk about retail theft. I have long supported the district attorney's efforts at diversion. I will continue to do so, but I do believe that there needs to be a little bit more clarity about making sure that repeat offenders, that this doesn't be allowed to continue for those who continue to repeat on this issue.
Thank you. Rebecca Reinhardt.
No, I'm trying to follow the direction exactly.
Thank you.
Answer the question first. No, I don't agree with the policy. I think that not charging for retail theft under 500 is creating a sense of chaos in the stores, and we can't have that. We need to have rules. We need to have consequences, but we also need to have compassion, and we can do both. I would support the prosecution for retail theft and also having strong diversion programs so people aren't just thrown in jail, but that there are strong diversion programs. We can do this in a way that has compassion, but we can't have no rules. And that's what we're seeing now, and we need a course correction on this.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
Yes, I support it because of the fact that we've done this before. There was a time back when I was supervising judge that Paul Levy, who's in charge here of the Center City District, came to both myself and Judge Georgianne Dare, and he said, we need to do something about shoplifting, about quality of life crimes here in Center City. So I told Georgianne, I said, Georgianne, why don't you start community court, a community court? So that was the first community court that we had here in Philadelphia. In that community court, we treated shoplifters similar to what's happening right now with these particular shoplifters because they're quality of life crimes. But the problem here is that there has been no communication, cooperation, and coordination to bring the court back into the system, and that comes from the mayor as well as city council working together with the district attorney and the court so that his system could work better and be taken better by the people by just having the courts involved.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
No, I'm not for this policy, and I'm a retailer. My family's now running the business, ShopRite, and our shoplifting's up like 300%. And when we call the police, even if they're violent, they're like, the DA's not going to prosecute it, so we're not coming. And so we have no protection. And it has grown precipitously. And people come in, they steal $490, and they're fighting with our loss prevention, saying that the DA told them they could have it. It's not ours, it's theirs. And so this is a lawlessness that's causing stores to close. I was in the business of getting stores open where they didn't have stores. And it's heartbreaking to see us going in the other direction. We need to fix this.
Thank you. From July of 2015 to March of 2023, Philadelphia's prison population decreased by almost 50%, falling from approximately 8,000 persons to 4,300, in large part due to prison reform efforts. If your plans to reduce violent crime are successful as mayor, what will happen to the size of the prison population? In your answer, please state whether the prison population size will likely increase or decrease. You have 30 seconds, and we're going to start with Helen Gem.
I mean, obviously, I hope that our prison population shrinks. My belief is that if violence is rooted in disinvestment, I believe that safety needs to be rooted in investment. A mayor needs to prevent crime, not just react to it. And I think that's a large part of what we haven't been able to do here in the city of Philadelphia, is actually help do the investments that make sure that people don't invest, that make sure that people actually prevent crime. And that's why I've talked about in addition to things like changes in our policing, increases in our detective work, a modern forensic lab, I am absolutely invested in non-police mental health mobile crisis outreach units. I help pilot them. Guaranteed jobs programs, and real investments in schools and in young people.
Thank you. Rebecca Reinhardt.
So as mayor, my anti-violence efforts will not increase the size of the prison population. What we need to do and what is in my plan, first, we need to implement the proven intervention strategies that have been shown to work in other cities. This is group violence intervention, cure violence, cognitive behavior therapy, strategies focused on those most likely to shoot or be shot, offering them a way out of the lifestyle with consequences if they don't take it. But the focus needs to be on opportunity first. And also, I guess I'm out of time. This was too fast. I'll get to my second thought on the next round. Thank you.
All right, Jeff Brown.
Yeah, I don't think we have to increase the prison population, but we have 1,700 people that are violent criminals that belong in prison, and there's people in prison that should be in diversion programs. And my firm actively works to help people in diversion programs and get their life back on track. So we need the right people off the street that are hurting people and the wrong people out of the prisons and turning their lives around.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
My anti-violence program is built on an inside-outside approach. So since we're now talking about inside, we're talking about the fact that, yes, we're going to be reducing the prison population because I'm going to turn these prisons that we have here into rehabilitation centers. See, we have to rehabilitate the individual, not just on the outside, but we have to start the rehabilitation of the individual inside, because we have to show that when they go home that they have hope. Their family has to see that they have hope when they're coming home.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Thank you. I think there's two issues. One is every city's having a similar problem as Philadelphia. A small amount of people are committing the majority of the crimes. There's about 1,800 or so, I've been told by a past police commissioner, that are the most violent on our street. We have to either get them into diversionary programs or take them off the street. So as far as the population increasing, I'm not sure it will increase. There are people in our prisons that probably should not be there right now. When I was on council, I sponsored programs to teach financial literacy to returning citizens and coding, and we also was supporting the New Leash on Life, where we bring dogs into the prison and they actually adopt the dog, and the recidivism rate is super low.
Thank you. So now I want to do a lightning round. So I'm going to read a statement, and you can only answer strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. Okay? And we're going to move from my left down to the right side of the table. Okay? All right, so the first statement is, we need more police officers patrolling in or around our public schools. Alan Dom.
Strongly agree.
Rebecca.
Agree.
Jeff Brown.
Strongly agree.
James DeLeon.
Strongly agree.
Helen
Agree.
Gim. Next statement. As mayor, I would veto a wealth tax on stocks and bonds held by Philadelphia residents in non-retirement accounts. Alan Dom.
Strongly agree. I'll veto it.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Agree. I would veto it.
Strongly agree.
Strongly agree.
I would have to review the proposal a little bit more closely.
Thank you.
Neutral.
Next statement. Philadelphia needs rent control legislation because rents are causing the city to become increasingly unaffordable for its lowest income residents. Alan Dom.
Disagree.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Disagree.
Jeff Brown.
Disagree. We'll solve the problem a different way.
James DeLeon.
Strongly agree.
Helen Gim.
Agree.
Next statement. I wish Philadelphia had the highest minimum wage of the 10 largest American cities. Alan Dom.
Agree.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Agree.
Agree.
Strongly agree.
Strongly agree.
Next statement. To attract and retain businesses, we need to lower substantially the wage tax and the business income and receipts tax. Alan Dom.
Strongly agree.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Agree.
Agree.
Strongly agree.
Neutral. I think there are other ways in which we can target our support for small businesses and especially local businesses. Raising the BERT exemption is one example of that.
Next statement. Act 111 in collective bargaining with the FOP places unreasonable limitations on the mayor's ability to discipline police officers for serious misconduct. Alan Dom.
Agree.
Strongly agree.
Agree.
Sorry.
James DeLeon.
Strongly agree.
Agree.
Next statement. Billions of dollars in property value goes untaxed in Philadelphia because it is owned by large nonprofit institutions. As mayor, I would try to negotiate payments in lieu of taxes or pilots with many of Philadelphia's largest nonprofits. Alan Dom.
Neutral. I might want to do services in lieu of taxes.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Agree.
I'm neutral as well, but I do want to hold their feet to the candle, especially if they can afford it.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
Yeah, I'm neutral on that too.
Helen Gim.
agree with, but I see it as a carrot, not a stick.
Okay. Next statement. Like some other cities, the Philadelphia Police Department should automatically publish body camera footage when police officers use force that causes death or severe bodily harm within 30 days unless investigatory or legal reasons require otherwise. Alan Dom.
Agree.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
Strongly agree.
Agree.
Strongly agree.
Strongly agree.
Next statement. Supervised injection sites are a worthwhile harm reduction strategy aimed at preventing overdose deaths. Alan Dom.
Disagree.
Rebecca Reinhardt.
I think this question clouds the larger issue of how to solve the opioid crisis, which I'm happy to discuss.
Jeff Brown.
I'm not for the safe injection site, so I disagree that it helps us.
James DeLeon.
Disagree.
Helen Gim.
I believe that when 1,200 people die in a city, no medically viable option should be off the table, but is not the first or only thing that a city should ever do.
Thank you. So this next round of questions consists of unique questions that have been posed to each of you individually, and you will have less than a minute to answer. And the first question is for Jeff Brown. Mr. Brown, as mayor, you would be running one of the largest municipal corporations in the country, but your critics have pointed out your lack of government experience and limited understanding of how such a massive government works. You have also downplayed the prior government experience of your opponents, such as their service on city council, saying that legislative experience does not qualify them to serve as mayor. Can you tell us 3 ways in which your experience has better prepared you to be mayor than someone's service as an elected legislator?
Yeah. First of all, I've managed a large unionized workforce, one that's complex, similar to the city. Second, I've actually solved complex social issues in the neighborhoods that have been transformative. And 3, I have done assignments even in the federal government and state government where I've had great progress, even though I went in without ever working in those things before. Because these positions, including the mayor, are designed for leaders to do. You get a lot of support. You get legal support, financial support, just like every other leadership position I had. What you need is the right leader. The technical support in a 26,000 person organization will be more than adequate to help a good leader make the right decisions.
Thank you. Next question is for Helen Gim. Some businesses, small, medium, and large, fear that your administration will be anti-business and inhibit the city's economic growth. Imagine right now that you are mayor and sitting face-to-face with the CEO of one of the city's largest employers who has threatened to move thousands of jobs to the suburbs because of your election. What will you say in the first 30 seconds to get them to stay?
Well, first of all, I believe that my work is pro-people, pro-Philadelphia, and I believe that is pro-business. A lot of times people look at worker policies as being anti-business. I do not. I believe in a vibrant, supported workforce, and I believe that is absolutely compatible with businesses. I'm invested in making sure that this city delivers on a safety, cleanliness, access to an educated workforce, and a real ease of doing business that is absolutely 100% pro-business, and I'm looking forward to working with you to make that happen.
Thank you. Next question is for Alan Dom. There is a viewpoint gaining momentum that high-ranking public officials should be more transparent with the public about their finances. Public officials releasing their tax returns can inform the public of potential conflicts of interest, observance of tax laws, and for those who are extremely wealthy, like yourself, how much you contribute to the public fisc. The Philadelphia Inquirer recently asked certain mayoral candidates for copies of their tax returns, and the paper reported that you declined to disclose yours, not even partially. Assuming the report is correct, why did you decline, and are you at least willing to tell us how much you paid in taxes to the city of Philadelphia?
Well, I will say this. I have confidentiality agreements with different partnerships that don't allow me to submit my tax returns, but I've actually, every year I've been in council, I've submitted my financial statement that lists every source of income that I receive, including parking spaces at the Wanamaker House or individual spots. It lists everything. And so I could not divulge my tax returns, but for the last 7 years, the city's had my financial information, and that's how the Inquirer actually wrote a story, because everything was there. Everything's there. So there's no secret here. And I had Claire Finkelstein from the University of Penn do a complete ethics plan for me. It is the gold standard, meets federal requirements. She did President Biden's ethics plan, and that is the plan I would put in place, hopefully when I'm elected mayor.
Thank you. And out of fairness, Jeff Brown, you did not disclose your tax returns either Do you want to provide a 15-second response?
Yeah, I have a similar challenge due to the partnerships I have, but I am prepared to disclose every single asset I have, every single income I have.
Thank you. James DeLeon, the question for you is, in 2008, the Court of Judicial Discipline found that you violated the rules of judicial conduct for an order you issued on behalf of a social acquaintance. Can you explain why that should not affect your candidacy for mayor?
Yes, well, first of all, it took place in 2005, so it was over 18 years ago. Since that period of time, I have learned a lot at that time, and that was something that I did, but I learned from that and I moved forward, and you, the citizens of Philadelphia, you, the Bar Association, saw that I was retained 3 times since that time. And since that time, I also wrote books on recidivism, and part of the reason why I'm right now in this race is because I'm trying to save lives. And the fact is that I'm the only individual in this race that made a decision on a daily basis that affected the lives of not only everyone in this room, but their families. So 18 years ago, it's time that I feel we should move on from that and look at my body of work since that time in regaining your public trust.
Thank you. Next question is for Rebecca Reinhardt. Recent attack ads say that when you held high-ranking executive positions in city government, you failed to pay small businesses on time and that you were the architect behind Mayor Nutter's plan to close libraries. What's your response to those claims, and what's more important, the big picture or the bottom line?
So that ad was false and misleading. I was the city treasurer from 2008 to 2010, navigating the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. And I actually kept the city afloat during that time. I then became the budget director in 2010 after the whole issue with libraries, et cetera. And my job was to convey the mayor's message at that point. The reason that I ran for office as city controller, the reason I'm running for mayor, is to make the right decisions for our city. As city controller, I put forth my priorities in my alternative budget plan. And as mayor, I will lead with that vision. I know the budget inside and out, and I can lead in the best way possible for all residents and neighborhoods of our city.
Thank you. So I know you all are sitting here thinking, I have some questions for the other candidates on this stage. So you each will have the opportunity to ask a question to the candidate sitting to your right, and the question has to be relevant for the Philadelphia legal community. Helen, we're going to start with you, and then Alan, you get to ask your question of Helen.
So wait, my question goes to
James DeLeon.
So I guess my question is, I haven't had a chance to think about this, so just give me a second here. I mean, my question really is, you've seen, the role of the municipal courts being largely separate from some of the mission of the city. And I have seen that particularly happen when an independent court, for example, deals with like separation of children and families through family court, or through civil debt, where we could show that significant amounts of legal representation could actually clear debt for individuals. Where would your experience working as an independent body that really has sometimes created some of these negative structures, how do you see that as mayor? How will you help lead the courts and the city to have a unified mission to actually work in the public interest and solve many of the problems that have faced many Philadelphians for a long time through a system that sometimes people consider to be unjust?
That must be the reason why no one from city council or the mayor's office ever came over to the courts to ask us what is our position on how to reduce gun violence.
That's not true, but
Well, I don't know.
Continue.
Because the fact is that everything is based on communicating, cooperating, and coordinating. Not a single organization that has been trying to stop gun violence has ever come to the court system to ask, what can we do to reduce gun violence? The mayor's office, not a single person in the executive branch of this government ever came over to our leaders in the court system to ask them, what can the court do to reduce gun violence? How can they help? Not a single person from the legislature came over to the court system to ask them, what can they do to reduce gun violence? And the reason is, I don't know, okay? But the fact is, just like Levy did, Levy came and said, I have a problem with quality of life. The court immediately stepped into the picture and gave community court twice.
Thank you. James DeLeon, you can ask your question of Jeff Brown.
I like Jeff. Okay. I'm not. He gets jumped on so much, so I'm not going to jump on Jeff the way. But Alan, I don't know about you though. You want to take my chair? Okay. Okay, Jeff. The only problem I have with what you've done, as far as you're bringing people out of recidivism, is why didn't you make an academy so that you could use that old proverb? If I give you a fish, you eat for a day, but if I teach you how to fish, you'll eat for a lifetime. Why didn't you do that?
Thank you, Judge. I did. My wife and I started a nonprofit, Uplift Solutions, and we have helped close to 1,000 formerly incarcerated or justice-involved individuals, because we do division. We work in the prisons behind the wall. We work outside the prisons. We have done that. And we've had a 98% track record in helping people stay out of the criminal justice system. So we did it. Matter of fact, we licensed our materials because our results are among the best in the country, and cities all over the country are starting to take advantage of our materials so they could do the same thing we've done.
Did
Thank
I just
you.
give him
So-
a softball?
You kind of
Wait.
So Helen Gim has to leave now, but we do want to give her 30 seconds to say farewell.
I promise I'm not evading my question from Alan, but I do apologize. That's, for a 7 o'clock engagement. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the Bar Association. I think that we have worked extraordinarily well together to figure out really transformative things that can move through city council, through a legislative body, and to transform a city. And that's what I believe that we need right now. We need a transformative leader who doesn't just run for office. I'm trying to change the way people actually live in Philadelphia. And I believe many of the members of the Bar Association have been part of that effort. You know what it takes to really move people right now. And that's what we're going to need from our next mayor. I'm proud to ask for your support and look forward to working with the Bar Association as well. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you. Jeff Brown, your question for Rebecca.
Rebecca, so I was curious, Rebecca hasn't gotten, to my knowledge, any union endorsements. And I asked my union, why wouldn't you consider Rebecca? And this is going to be a question. And they said that Rebecca, who has an accounting background, is more about policy, like what do other cities do, more about numbers, debits and credits than about people. And the perfect example was in the Nutter administration, almost all the union employees got no raises. They let those contracts expire. They didn't give any raises. There was no empathy for them, even though the management did get raises. Convince me that you're not that way.
Yeah, so first, as budget director, my job was to support the mayor. That's the way the city government works. The budget director doesn't make decisions on their own. That would be a very strange setup in the city. And I have publicly said, since I ran for controller in 2017, that I would make a very different decision than Mayor Nutter on employee raises. As city controller, I worked closely with the unions on many, many issues. I managed a union workforce. I worked with the unions on prison conditions, on many conditions on sanitation across this city, and I work for the people of our city. So to me, the most important endorsement I can get is May 16th, when I'm elected, hopefully, mayor of this great city. So to your question, Jeff, I stand up for workers. I stand up for people. My track record as controller speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And your question for Alan Don.
So my question for Alan, Alan, you just mentioned that you couldn't disclose your tax returns because of privacy or confidentiality agreements. Another way to look at this would be that there is a mayor's disclosure form that is more detailed than what you've had to fill out as a city councilman. And this question could go for several of the candidates, including Jeff Brown. would you be willing to release the mayor's return before May 16th to show that level of detail that will be required to be mayor? And I would love to ask that of Jeff Brown too, because I think it would be important.
I would say that I'd have to look at the form, and thank you for the question, and make sure that it doesn't violate any of the agreements that I do have. But I would want to see the form first, and if I could complete the form without violating the agreements, I'd be happy to complete it.
I would be glad to answer that. If the form is required, I'd be glad to do it. And I would also be prepared to do it in advance. And if I have a business relationship that would be in conflict, I'd be prepared to sell that. Because if you're mayor, you have to comply with the laws. You're going to have to do it anyway.
All right, and Alan, out of fairness to you, since the person who was supposed to receive your question left, you get to pick anybody left on the panel.
Can I pick the person who left and ask them a question? And you can get the answer from her. Look, in this campaign, this is the question I wanted to ask Helen. In this campaign, Helen said that she can't be specific about her tax policy because she needed a new tax reform commission. But as a member of council, she voted against reducing taxes for small businesses and proposed higher taxes. So my question to Helen, and you can find out, Marcel, what the answer would be. If Helen knew enough then to make those votes, what doesn't she know now that she didn't know then and as a council member?
Guess we'll ask her. And I think Rebecca Reinhardt has to leave. Rebecca, do you want to give a 30-second farewell?
Sure. Well, thank you so much to the Bar Association for having me here this evening. I think as we're discussing the mayor's race, this race could not be more critical. Our city is in such a critical moment. We need a mayor with the right experience and courage to lead this city, and I have both. I've spoken about my experience in the city. I also have the courage to stand up to the status quo. I showed that when I ran against the long-term incumbent in 2017 and won. I've shown that in the things I've taken on as city controller, and it's how I'll lead as mayor, with the courage to make decisions that might not be politically popular, but that are necessary to move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So this question came in from the criminal justice section of the Philadelphia Bar Association. One of the major topics in the city is the Philadelphia Department of Prisons and the conditions at the jails, staff shortages, and other prison-related issues. There's a lot of talk about the need for a prison oversight panel with real power over the jails. What is your view of the jails, the jail conditions, and how do you plan to improve things at the Philadelphia prisons? Would you support a prison oversight board that could provide supervision, policy, and transparency at the prisons? And we'll start with Jeff Brown.
So let me first disclose that a lot of the prison workers are the union DC 33 that endorsed me, and I'm very concerned about the prisons. They just, after 5 or 6 years, fixed the problem with their locks. For a long period of time, you couldn't lock the prisoners in, which was very unsafe for the workers. The prison guards go through the same training as a police officer, but make a small fraction of what police officers make. The police start at $60,000. The prison guards start at $40,000. They get lower health insurance, and the prison guards are mostly black, and the police officers are mostly white. And so it's just the tip of the iceberg of inequities and improper thinking, and I think it's the mayor's responsibility to fix this. It's an excuse to make an oversight board to delay things and blame other people. You had yourself a decent mayor, they would fix these problems, because that's what a good leader does.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
I think the prisons need a total overhaul. I would support that oversight board. And I've been up there several times. It's a disgrace, the conditions in the prison right now. It's a disgrace. And look, we need more programs that'll teach people who are up on State Road. And remember, many of the people on State Road have not been convicted. They're just being held there right now. And we need more programs to get them back into the economy, whether it's the coding classes I sponsored or financial literacy or actual courses that'll help them with their new jobs. But we need more employment opportunities up on State Road, and we probably need to dramatically clean up the conditions there. They're pretty pathetic. I don't know how many of you have been up there, but it's a disgrace at the conditions that we have on State Road right now. And a lot of this, I think, is leadership and management, but it's also having compassion for all those people that are there. This is not like SEI. This is different. This is the Philadelphia. This is where there's much minor crimes that are being committed. This is an opportunity for us to give these people a second and third and fourth chance and turn their lives around. We should take advantage of it.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
So over the years, I've written a lot of orders to fix things up at those prisons up on State Road. As a matter of fact, I've gone up there to take a look to make sure that my orders were complied with. I've come up with a system called the Local Incident Management System, which is a uniform set of processes and procedures that the city government would use to combat the problems at the prison by enabling the necessary responders to work more effectively and efficiently together to manage the root causes of the problems at the prison. Now, initially, I told you that I was turning those prisons into rehabilitation centers. One of the other aspects of that is that we have to put work jobs out there for the individuals, such as the Goldman Sachs 10,000, where we could, not just for the people that are there, but also for the victims, so that they could learn entrepreneurial skills. We also would have the German Workforce Initiative that would be out at the prisons, where the individuals at the prison, not just them, but also the victims, would be able to get particular skills to advance themselves in life, because we understand that sometimes the victims become the perpetrators.
Thank you. So this next question is a two-part question, and it's about working from home. So first, given the importance of city workers to the Center City ecosystem, how many days per week will you require city workers to be in the office, if any? And second, how many days per week would you like to see employees of Center City law firms be in their offices? And we'll start with Jeff Brown.
Yeah, I think the city workforce needs to return to work completely. And that's 5 days a week. That's what I believe. In my business, no one ever went home. So it's easier. They didn't get used to working from home. But we need to serve our citizens, and you can't really serve them from home the same way. Now, as far as the city law firms, I don't think we have the right to tell the city law firms what to do. But I wish they would come back, and I want to work with you to get them back. And my plan to do that is to hire someone in charge of arts, culture, and fun. And I want to make it worth their while to come back, and I want to fix the crime problem so it's safe for them to come back. And I want to work with the large businesses in the city because we want to help the people make it worth their while to come back, because it's really hurting us, leaving it the way it is.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Thank you. Look, I would say the city people, city workers should come back at a minimum 4 days a week. And for some of the jobs, it should be 5 days, depending on the type of job it is. And for the private sector, I'd love to see people come back a lot more than they are now. Remember, 40% of the city workforce commutes into the city for a job from the suburbs. 40%. We need them to be in the city. They're going out for lunches, they're going out after work. They're an important part of this economy. But we have a bigger issue we need to deal with, and I believe it's from City Hall to 20th Street between Market and JFK. Like other cities, that's now a pocket of emptiness where maybe there's 50% of your people in those office buildings. We're going to have many office buildings we're going to have to figure out what to do with because they're going to become vacant. It's just a reality. We have to repurpose them for residential, probably. We have to figure out the incentives to get people back there and living there. And we need to make that whole corridor with more restaurants, more activities, and more fun. Because right now, that's like hollow. A lot of the ground floor spaces are empty, and we need to bring back that fun in the city.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
Well, first, I have to make the city safe. And then after I make the city safe, which is through my local incident management system, then I have to make the city vibrant. Because the city, in order to live, has to have people that are on the streets, that are going into the businesses, that are into the offices. So I have to, as far as the city workers are concerned, I have a large staff of people that I have to hire anyway. So I'm going to be doing public service announcements on TV, asking the people specifically that I need to come work with me because I cannot do it alone. I need the citizens of Philadelphia to fill these jobs that we have down here that need to be filled so that they can service the citizens. So once I put my PSAs out and get people in here to work, I'm going to then talk with the Bar Association as to, now that the city is safer, now that the city is going on more vibrant, what can we do to bring lawyers that are home a little bit more down here in downtown Philly?
Thank you. Now, I know the members of our audience must have questions. So at this point in time, we're going to open it up for questions. And you can direct your questions to all of the candidates or an individual candidate. And I'm going to ask the candidates to limit their answers to 1 minute.
Hi, my name's Andrew. I'm quite involved with urban agriculture, and Philadelphia has been a leader when it comes to American cities with urban ag and with trees as well, and with the tree plan, the urban agriculture plan. So how will each of you support in your administration urban agriculture?
You want to start?
Start with Alan Don.
First of all, I remember being on council and we had a lot of urban farming with old warehouses and so forth and growing fruits and vegetables and utilizing some of these old facilities for urban farming, which I'm a big supporter of. Also a big supporter of a green canopy across the city, but specifically in the Hunting Park section, where we see much hotter areas in Hunting Park because of the lack of a tree canopy. And you know, when I was on council, I have a lot of respect for Council Member Kathy Gilmore Richardson, who's done a great job in this area, and I was very supportive of her programs. We need to do more in that area, but I will say that green is important. And I'll tell you a little story about myself that probably no one knows. I used to have a lawn business besides all the other businesses I had, and when I graduated high school, I wanted to become a landscape architect, and I applied to Delaware Valley Agricultural School up on, was it 309, I think, or 202, I think it is. I didn't go, but I'm very tuned into that, and I think landscaping and on our architecture and greening the city is key.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
Yeah, so I want to expand the tree canopy as well. We have a plan, but I want to accelerate it, and I want to do it through nonprofits that can maintain the trees as part of the deal. In addition to capping 95 and making a 14-acre park, I would also like to cap 76. I think that would be very good. And my thinking in this is the green, but it's more than that. It's also our ability to address rainwater. We currently don't have adequate way to address it, and you saw what happened in 76 with the flooding, or 676. And we have to look at this as a strategy to mitigate that and other disease. And so that's my thinking on that. One other thing about urban agriculture, I've been involved in it myself. I've actually had a closed loop system in one of our stores with tilapia and growing stuff, and I'm into it. And I think there's big economic opportunities to have vertical growing in the city. And I'm not going to say who, but I'm working with a very large firm that wants to build a huge vertical operation in the city. It could create a lot of good jobs, maybe even union jobs.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
Well, as far as I wrote an article on this entire subject for the Grid magazine back in February, and based on the article, the Parks and Recreation hired a harborist. Is that what it's called? Right. Okay. So the situation is that here in Philadelphia we have 28,000 trees that need to be serviced, and that's one of the reasons why they hired the individual. So what we would have to do, what I would have to do as mayor, is I would have to plan, organize, and execute how we would go about maintaining our tree forests. Now the funny thing is, I came back from California where I made it in Hollywood with Warner Studios, and the people there asked me, why did I come back to Philly? I told them, because of trees. Okay, because Philly is a city of trees. They have palm trees, no shade. Philly had a lot of trees, a lot of shade. Okay, so I am totally for that.
Question came in from the crowd. It is, do you support the continuation and/or broader expansion of a new program, Philly Joy Bank, that provides monthly cash assistance to pregnant Philadelphians? And we'll start with James DeLeon.
Yes, so that particular system is a system that gives individuals $1,000, okay? $1,000 a month, I believe it is. So the fact is that I would really like to see that more, because especially women of color are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from childbirth. So it's very important that not only postnatal care, but prenatal care is extremely important in this city. And that program is extremely important, and I would like to see that doubled. Now, the situation is, when the individuals get the money, there's no questions asked as to how they use it. But I don't have a problem with that, but I would also like to give them the possibility of a job, the possibility of entrepreneurship, the possibility of standing on their own 2 feet after they get themselves together from childbirth, if they already don't have the means to do so themselves.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
Yeah, we do have a problem with health disparities, especially in black and brown communities. And we do need to help moms, prenatal and postnatal, have a better outcome. And I do think cash assistance could be part of it, but I think we need a little more teeth to this program, because to take advantage of the cash assistance, I think you have to require that they comply with the strategy, prenatal care and whatnot. And so I like the idea, but I want to make sure we're getting our money's worth for it.
Thank you. Alan Dom?
My answer is yes, but I also want to share with you that we still leave on the table in our city $450 million of federal and state benefits that our residents don't get. Now, just do the math real quickly. We have 400,000 in poverty. We leave 450 million. I'm not saying it's accurate, but that's over $1,200 per person in our city. We leave $100 million of earned income tax credit. 35,000 families can get refunds of $1,000 to $6,000. We leave $100,000 in SNAP, which is food stamps. We leave $230 million in medical assistance for lower income and seniors who don't apply for it. And then there's other programs. What we need to do is engage BDT, Benefits Data Trust, Campaign for Working Families, and United Way, because they have programs where we invest $1 and they get back $10 to $12 of these benefits. We should be ramping that investment up, getting $450 million. The first job of the mayor should be, how do I get money into the city that's not from the city? This is $450 million of federal and state money. This is what we should be doing.
Thank you. Next question from the crowd. 12 years into the Bailey consent decree, the city is just starting to address racial disparities and stops. What will you do to ensure that your police commissioner pushes those reforms forward? Start with Alan Dom.
Well, I'll make sure that those reforms are pushed forward. As the mayor, that's my number one job, public safety. But I will also engage other professionals outside of the police department to assist me with that. And I'll have a public safety cabinet. And that cabinet will have weekly meetings consisting of the police commissioner, the DA, the attorney general, U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, ATF, courts, SEPTA and PATCO Security, EDS and MEDS Police. I will conduct the meetings myself on a weekly basis. They'll be either 1 hour, 2 hours, or 6 hours. Whatever it takes to get the public safety under control and build back the trust in all of our law enforcement. And I did this when I was on council. I had 8 or 9 meetings where I brought everybody together. It was very productive. And I would do that day one as your next mayor.
Thank you. James DeLeon?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is initiate through my program, that local incident management system that I was telling you about, a buffer. It's a buffer would be, I brought it from the Netherlands, where I went over and spoke to some people at, well, not in Netherlands, but in Scotland Yard about this particular concept. So you put a person or persons or organization between the neighborhood and the police. Now, what happens is when you have a non-criminal situation going on, the people would dial 311. The individuals that come, they're trained in anger management counseling, post-traumatic stress, mental health, whatever is needed in order to diffuse the situation without the police. If the police come, they have the power to tell the police, stand back, this is mine. If they do need police help, they would have a silent button on them that they would push for police. Now, also, my officers are being trained during this period of time because we have to treat, just like in the courtroom, courtesy and respect is what they have to treat the citizen with.
Thank you. Jeff Brown?
So to have safety, you have to have equity. And right now we have a situation where the lack of equity is questioning whether we could have safety. And we have to have both. And so I went to every police organization in the city, and they all endorsed me. They've all seen my plan at jeffbrownformayor.com. It's fairly comprehensive. And it asks for things that they historically have not wanted to do. And I said to them, we can't sustain it in its current state. If you want to sustain policing, we have to have equity. And that includes starting a new workforce, public safety officers with a different test. So we can include people from the neighborhoods and get them remedial assistance so they can become a police officer. It includes changes in policy to let people from communities police their own communities so they're more familiar with the community. And it includes training. Train people in de-escalating skills and having a service mindset. So I think it's very comprehensive, and I have the support of the police organizations, and I believe I will get them to reform this system with me.
Thank you. Do we have another question in the crowd?
Yeah, Riley Ross. I'm a civil rights lawyer here in the city. We've seen across the country, states or cities have banned the use of qualified immunity by police officers by enacting laws that would make it against the law for excessive use of force and then prohibit the use of qualified immunity as a defense. Would you be in favor of such a law for Philadelphia?
Going to start with James DeLeon.
Qualified immunity is a term that needs to be discussed in a lot more detail as to what it would partake. I'm not for immunity specifically if a person has been shown to do something that is totally negative against a citizen or against anybody. We just had an officer that pepper sprayed individuals on the Parkway, and he was just, it was a hung jury today. So the citizens of Philadelphia are even a little bit mixed as to how they should treat police officers. So that issue on qualified immunity, I think we're going to have to study it a little bit more, Riley, but I'm with you, okay, as far as that the officers that do wrong should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, if it's shown that they were wrong from the beginning.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Look, I'm in favor of any officer who does something wrong being held accountable. But to answer your question, Riley, I'd have to learn more about that before I give you a specific answer. One thing I've learned in government and in the private sector is to only answer really the questions when I know the right answers. And if I haven't researched it, I'm not going to tell you something without me having that knowledge. So I want to learn more about it before I give a definitive answer.
Jeff Brown.
Yeah, I would need legal counsel because basically my thinking is if a police officer breaks the law, they have to be accountable for that. If they use excessive force, they have to be accountable. On the other hand, the citizens sometimes want them to be accountable for that they've been trained to do and that are allowed under the law. And so I am concerned about not being able to recruit police officers, and that's the balance. And a lot of these laws have to do with the balanced approach. How do we have safety and equity? And so I would definitely be open to looking at it, but I'm not exactly sure where you can make changes to make sure that people are accountable for their actions in the police and outside the police.
Thank you. Have another question over here?
Yes, sorry, 1 second. Good evening, and thank you all for coming today.
Excuse me, sorry. So people on the virtual audience can hear. I apologize.
I've been involved with the criminal justice system both as a prosecutor and a defense lawyer for close to 25 years, and I've read some of the proposals that you have written on public safety that some of the candidates have written, and I have also experienced being attacked myself, which when the people that did it to me attacked me seemed to make it a party and a joyful experience, and I ended up needing surgery over it as well. So with the low clearance rate of crimes these days, with, you know, a lot of political forces in the city being anti-law enforcement or anti-public, you know, anti-pushing the edge against the criminals, it seems like the police are the ones that really have the fear here, and it doesn't seem like the criminals have any fear whatsoever. So specifically, leaving aside throwing more money at it or forming meetings and talking things, how are you actually going to stop criminals from doing the things they've been doing? People talk about reducing the crime rate to 50%, but I don't hear any specifics or see any specifics on any of your proposals. So what do you plan to do?
I'm going to start with Jeff Brown.
Thank you. And I actually talked to Larry Krasner about some of what you've said, and you know, I have the same sense you do, that we are not enforcing a lot of the laws, and there is lawlessness in the city, and people are dying, and so we got to do something different because what we're currently doing is not working for us. And I think what Larry says, and I take him at his word for this, he's saying he doesn't have the evidence to prosecute a lot of these cases. And the two areas that we could do better in evidence are forensics. I mean, our forensics is not up to par. We need investment in there. The current budget from Kenny includes a big forensics investment, and gunshot cameras. And if I had video evidence of the perpetrators, same with dumping, I want video evidence. I want to prosecute people. I need evidence. And I think we need to invest to have evidence and take the relatively small percentage of population that are committing all these crimes off the street. And I think that'll get us the best bang for the buck. And of course, to do it, we need to have an adequately staffed police department.
Thank you. James DeLeon.
Well, I'm not sure if you've read my plan, but the Philadelphia Inquirer Voters Guide said that to the voters, if you're interested in stopping gun violence, vote for Jimmy DeLeon. Because I have the only comprehensive plan out of all these candidates on how to reduce gun violence in the city of Philadelphia. And it starts with two aspects. It has the courts involved, which nobody else has ever involved, and it also has giving money to the grassroots groups in order to alleviate recidivism. And it goes directly to the criminals because, or the potential criminals, the possible perpetrators, using group violence detention programs where you have a team, a person who lost their loved one to violence, a police officer, and a social worker that go to the homes of these possible perpetrators to explain to them. I don't have the time to get into it. If you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Look, I had a public safety cabinet while I was on council. We met 8 or 9 times. I would have that day one. That would include the DA, the police commissioner, U.S. Attorney, Attorney General, FBI, ATF, courts, EDS and MEDS, police, PATCO and SEPTA police. And I will say this, when I had those meetings, I can work with the DA, Larry Krasner, but if for some reason he won't prosecute retail theft or he won't prosecute illegal gun violations, then I'll have to go around him to the Attorney General's office or the U.S. Attorney's office. But I don't believe it's acceptable to not prosecute those things. I think we have to do that. And, you know, I've always was brought up that no is an objection to get to yes. And just because we can't do something here, we got to figure out a way to get it done, maybe through Harrisburg. We have a tremendous opportunity to work with Governor Shapiro, who I think could be a tremendous ally for us and help us in this situation. I think he'll be there for us.
Thank you. And this question that came from Theodore Simon online might be a good way to end the night. It's a very, very nice question. So it is identify the best mayoral characteristics of each other candidate that was here tonight. And would you offer any other candidates a position in your administration? And we will start with Alan Dom.
I'm going to speak to Judge DeLeon, and I'll tell you why. This is a guy who's come to every forum. He's been to everything. He has good ideas, and I will say I didn't know the judge before this whole campaigning, but you have to give him a lot of credit. He's been out here all the time, and he presents good information, and I have actually learned a lot from what he has talked about. Not everything is perfect, but the guy's got some smart ideas, and anyone else who's running should listen to him because he's a good man. And will share that with you. That's how I feel about him. He is a good person. And whatever happened, whenever, doesn't matter to me. He's just a good guy.
Thank you. Jeff Brown.
I like Judge Leon too. And matter of fact, I have sat down with him and talked to him about his local incident management program, and I am interested in his thoughts on gun violence. And I think he would be a great asset. And I'm going to mention a second one. I don't question Rebecca Reinhardt's accounting and finance knowledge. I think she's good at that. But I think, a lot of the people that are good at that tend to be a little cold on human issues, and that's what I get concerned about her as a mayoral candidate.
James DeLeon.
Well, truthfully, Alan has the best system on education reform than Helen. Okay, his system is better. Jeff is a management genius. I don't have anything. The city council members that are running, you already know my position on that. That's the reason why I'm in the race, okay? Because I was frustrated with the killings that I feel that they had something to do with. Rebecca is a good person, and she's a pencil pusher. She hasn't given. She didn't make decisions on a daily basis that affected people's lives. That's the only issue with her.
Thank you. And so I think now we're going to close out our forum, and I'm going to ask each of the candidates to give a 1-minute farewell, and I will start with James DeLeon.
Farewell.
That's a good one. I like that.
No, the reality is I'm from Philadelphia. I went to West Philadelphia Catholic High School for boys. I was a single parent. I was raised by a single parent. I became a widower when my first wife died, so I ended up raising a 13-month-old baby. It was pretty rough at the time, waiting for the results from the bar, which everybody knows. But with me, I was driving a cab, and I was on welfare at that time. So it was a different situation, and I ended up becoming an attorney. Most of you don't know this, but I also represented the estate of John Africa after the MOVE bombing. So, you know, that's one of the other things that people don't know about me. And I was also a military attorney as well. So I've had a lot of extensive experience. Thank you. Yes, I did make that mistake 18 years ago. Yes, I did learn from it. And yes, I have moved on from it. And I feel I've become a better person.
Jeff Brown.
So, this city is in a tremendous crisis. I don't think any of us question that. And, you know, the mayor had his role in that. And to me, a lot of our long-term city council people, they had their role in it. They were on Zoom, and they really didn't do much to address the problems we have. And when I look at their skill sets, it's not that they don't have skills. In my mind, they don't have the leadership and management skills to fix the problems we have. And I thought the last 7.5 years were horrible, how this city was run. I mean, the way emergencies were handled and crises is just really horrible. I don't want to be here to watch another 8 years like that. And I'm dragging my you-know-what out of the grocery business because I think by coincidence, I just happen to have the skill of what we need. We need to get people out of poverty. That's what I'm an expert in. Nothing will work if we can't help people out of poverty. And we've done a really very, very poor job of that over my lifetime.
Thank you. Alan Dom.
Thank you. Look, Philadelphia has a public safety crisis. It has a good-paying jobs crisis, education and housing affordability crisis, and a poverty crisis. But the biggest crisis we have is a crisis of leadership. Think about it. Any successful government, university, hospital, private business, law firm has strong leadership. And when you have strong leadership, you're going to be successful. We need strong leadership in the mayor's office. That's what this race is really about. It is a turning point similar to 1991 or 1979 for this city of the future of Philadelphia. I can hit the ground running day one. I've had over 40 years in the private sector. I've served almost 7 years on council. I know how to bring people together to solve our biggest issues. And look, this race is really about leadership. It's all leadership, because you need to bring people together to solve these issues. And I will say the number one issue for all of us is public safety. When 52% of the population believes that they thought about moving last year, we have to get that under control.
Thank you. So to the candidates, I want to thank each of you for spending your evening with us. We realize this is the home stretch, and the fact that you stuck it out with us really means a lot. To the audience, thank you for coming. Thank you for allowing me to answer your questions or ask your questions. And no matter what you do, what you decide, just make sure you get out and vote. And hopefully you can come up to the front and ask our candidates a question if they plan to hang around for a little bit. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You're a great audience.
Yeah.